Hello, story lovers! Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. The cream envelope landed on Jameson Blackwood's mahogany desk with the weight of a death sentence. Gold calligraphy spelled out names that felt like acid in his throat. Natasha Peaton and Dean Harrington request the honor of your presence. 3 years. He had planned to marry her for 3 years, convinced their perfectly curated relationship was love. She had walked away 6 months ago, her final words still echoing in the hollow space where his heart used to be. You're married to your company, not me. The worst part? She had been right. Jameson loosened his tie, the walls of his downtown Seattle office suddenly suffocating. 20 minutes later, he found himself wandering through Pike Place Market, drawn by muscle memory to a tiny coffee shop called Grounded. Inside, mismatched furniture sat beneath local art on exposed brick walls. The air was thick with the smell of fresh roasted beans and something else, something real. What can I get started for you? The voice was warm, lacking the rehearsed cheerfulness he had grown to hate. Jameson looked up into curious hazel eyes. The woman behind the counter had dark curly hair pulled into a messy bun, freckles scattered across her nose, and an apron covered in coffee stains. Her name tag read Riley with a small hand-drawn smiley face. Just a black coffee, please. Living dangerously, I see. Riley smiled as she poured from a fresh pot. Most people need at least 3 adjectives and a flavor shot before they can order. Despite himself, Jameson felt his lips twitch. I'm a simple man, said the guy wearing a watch that cost more than my car. She slid the coffee across the counter, her tone teasing rather than judgmental. That'll be $3.50. As Jameson paid, he noticed the donation jar beside the register. Help save Grounded. Support local business. The jar was nearly empty. Tough times? He asked, surprising himself with the question. Riley's smile faltered. The landlord tripled our rent. We have until the end of the month. She shrugged, trying for lightness. But hey, that's life in a gentrifying neighborhood, right? Something about her resilience intrigued him. Jameson took a seat by the window instead of leaving. The coffee was excellent, far better than the expensive pods in his office. He opened his laptop but found himself watching Riley instead. She moved through the shop with easy grace, remembering regular customers' names, drawing hearts and foam, treating everyone like family. An hour passed before the afternoon rush died down. Riley began wiping tables, and Jameson noticed the exhaustion in her movements, the shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Long day? He found himself asking. She looked over, seeming surprised he was still there. Long month, honestly, but complaining won't change anything. She hesitated, then sat down across from him, coffee pot in hand. Refill? As she poured, her phone buzzed. Jameson watched her face transform from friendly to stricken as she read the message. Her hand trembled slightly as she set down the pot. Sorry, I need to... She stood abruptly, walking quickly to the back room. Jameson should have minded his own business. That was what the old him would have done. But something made him wait. When Riley returned 10 minutes later with red-rimmed eyes, he spoke before thinking. Are you okay? Riley let out a shaky laugh. Just peachy. My sister's hospital called. They pushed her surgery date up, which is great. Except the insurance won't cover it all, and I'm about $40,000 short of making it happen. She scrubbed the already clean counter with fierce energy. But hey, at least I have coffee. What kind of surgery? Spinal fusion. Grace was in a car accident 2 years ago. She's only 19 and has been in constant pain ever since. Riley's voice cracked. The doctors say without the surgery within the next few months, the damage could become permanent. Jameson made a decision that would change everything. I have a proposition for you. Riley looked at him wearily. I'm not that kind of barista. Not that kind of proposition. Jameson pulled out his phone, showing her his calendar. 2 weeks from now, I have to attend my ex-fiancée's wedding. I need a date. Someone real. Someone who will make it clear I've moved on. So hire an escort service. Tried. They're too obvious, too polished. Natasha would see through it immediately. He leaned forward. I need someone genuine. Someone who won't try to impress anyone because she doesn't care about impressing them. Riley crossed her arms. Why would I help you? Because I'll pay for your sister's surgery. All of it. Plus enough to cover her physical therapy and medication for the next year. The coffee shop went silent, except for the hiss of the espresso machine. Riley stared at him like he had grown a second head. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. One evening, maybe 6 hours total. You show up, smile, play the role of my girlfriend, and your sister gets the medical care she needs. That's insane. Probably. Jameson pulled out a business card. But the offer stands. Think about it. Riley looked at the card, then at her phone with its devastating message, then back at Jameson. What's the catch? No catch. Just be yourself. That's all I need. She studied him for a long moment, searching for deception and finding only tired honesty. I need this in writing, a real contract. My lawyer will draw one up. I need to know why. Why me? Why would you pay so much for something so simple? Jameson was quiet, remembering Natasha's last words to him. You don't know how to be real with anyone, Jaime. You're just a walking corporation in a suit. He looked at Riley, at her coffee-stained apron and honest eyes. You were the first person in 5 years who didn't want anything from me until I offered it. Riley went home that night to the small apartment she shared with Grace. Her sister was curled on the couch, her face tight with pain despite the medication. How was work? Grace asked, trying to smile. Weird. Riley sat down, pulling Grace's feet into her lap to massage them gently. I met someone who offered to pay for your surgery. Grace's eyes widened. What? Riley explained the entire bizarre encounter, expecting her sister to call her crazy. Instead, Grace grabbed her hand. Do it. Grace, I'd be lying to everyone. You'd be helping me walk without pain. Riley, I've watched you work 3 jobs to keep us afloat. You put your own life on hold for me. If some rich guy wants to throw money at his problems and it helps us, why not? Riley thought about the wedding invitation she had glimpsed on Jameson's desk, about the tightness in his voice when he mentioned his ex-fiancée. He wasn't just a rich guy throwing money around. He was someone hurting, trying to salvage his pride. And she was someone desperate, trying to save her sister. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. Jameson answered on the first ring. Riley, I'll do it, but I have conditions. Name them. I want the surgery scheduled and paid for before the wedding. I want everything in writing, and I want to know what I'm walking into. Tell me about her. Tell me about this wedding and what you really need from me. There was a pause. Then Jameson's voice came through, quieter, more vulnerable. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? Same coffee shop. I'll bring the good coffee. Isn't all coffee at Grounded Good Coffee? Riley hung up and looked at her sister, whose eyes were already brighter with hope. What have I just agreed to? Grace squeezed her hand. Maybe something wonderful. Riley wasn't so sure, but as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the tech billionaire with sad eyes who noticed when she was hurting. Whatever happened next, at least Grace would be okay. The contract arrived at Grounded the next morning in a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Riley's monthly rent. Jameson sat across from her in the same window seat, looking less polished than yesterday. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept either. $45,000 for your sister's surgery and aftercare, he said, sliding the document across the table. Another $5,000 for you. Clothing, hair, whatever you need for the wedding. Plus a bonus if you can convincingly play the role. Riley's hands trembled as she read through the legal language. It was all there, exactly as promised. No hidden clauses, no strings attached. This is real. I don't joke about contracts. She looked up at him. Tell me about her. About Natasha. Jameson leaned back, his jaw tight. We met at a tech conference 5 years ago. She was a venture capitalist. Beautiful. Brilliant. Exactly what everyone expected me to want. He paused, staring into his coffee. I thought I loved her. Maybe I did, but she was right when she said I was married to my work. I missed dinners, forgot anniversaries, chose board meetings over her every single time. So she left. She left for my business partner. Dean. The name came out bitter. They're getting married at the Fairmont Olympic. 200 guests, all people from our world. Tech executives, investors, everyone who watched our relationship implode in real time. Riley felt something twist in her chest. You want to show them you've moved on? I want to show them I'm capable of something real. Jameson's eyes met hers, and Riley saw raw vulnerability there, even if it's fake. Over the next week, Riley's life transformed into something unrecognizable. Grace's surgery was scheduled for 3 days before the wedding. The hospital called to confirm full payment had been received. Riley cried in the bathroom of Grounded for 20 minutes. Jameson insisted on preparing her for the wedding. He took her to Nordstrom, where a personal stylist named Claire descended on her like a well-dressed hurricane. We need elegant but approachable, Jameson told Claire. Not trying too hard, natural. Riley stood in the dressing room, staring at price tags that made her dizzy. When she emerged in a midnight blue dress that hugged her curves and fell to her knees, Jameson went very still. Too much? Riley asked, suddenly self-conscious. Perfect. His voice was rough. You look perfect. Something electric passed between them in that moment. Riley told herself it was just part of the act, but her racing heart suggested otherwise. They met for coffee every morning that week, and Jameson coached her on the wedding details. Names to remember, stories to tell, the careful dance of their fictional relationship. How did we meet? Riley asked on day 3. You made me the best coffee I'd ever had. I came back every day for a week before I got the courage to ask you out. That's actually kind of sweet. It's true, except the asking out part. Jameson smiled, and Riley realized it was the first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. What do I do when people ask about us? About our relationship? Tell them I'm terrible at expressing emotions, but I try. Tell them you're teaching me how to be present. He looked away. Tell them I'm better when I'm with you. Riley's throat felt tight. Jameson? Yeah? Is any of this real for you? Or am I just a prop in your revenge fantasy? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. The day before Grace's surgery, Jameson showed up at the hospital. Riley was sitting in the waiting area, filling out paperwork, when she looked up to find him standing there in jeans and a sweater, holding 2 cups of coffee from Grounded. What are you doing here? I thought you might need this. He handed her the coffee and sat down beside her. And maybe some company. You don't have to do this. The contract doesn't cover moral support. I know. They sat in silence, drinking coffee, until Grace's doctor came out to go over the pre-surgery protocol. Jameson stood to leave, but Riley grabbed his hand. Stay, please. He stayed, when Grace was wheeled in for pre-op. She took one look at Jameson and Riley's intertwined hands and smiled knowingly. So you're the billionaire. That's me. Take care of my sister. I will, Jameson said, and something in his voice made Riley's heart stutter. The surgery took 6 hours. Jameson bought terrible cafeteria sandwiches and made Riley eat. He called his assistant to reschedule his afternoon meetings. He sat beside her in uncomfortable plastic chairs and never once checked his phone. When the doctor finally emerged with news of a successful surgery, Riley collapsed against Jameson's chest and sobbed with relief. His arms came around her, solid and warm, and for the first time in 2 years, Riley felt like she could breathe. Thank you, she whispered against his shirt. Thank you, Riley. His voice was strained. We need to talk, she pulled back, looking up at him. About what? About the fact that this stopped feeling fake somewhere around day 3. Riley's breath caught. The fluorescent hospital lights made everything feel surreal, suspended between reality and dream. Jameson, we have a contract. I know. The wedding is in 2 days. I know. This can't be real. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Tell me you don't feel this too. Tell me I'm imagining it. Riley couldn't, because she did feel it. The connection that had sparked that first day had grown into something consuming, something that terrified her with its intensity. After the wedding, she said finally. We'll figure this out after the wedding. Promise? Promise. He kissed her forehead, gentle and devastating, and Riley knew with absolute certainty that she was in trouble. This was supposed to be simple, a transaction, a means to an end. Instead, she was falling for a man who was paying her to pretend to love him. The next morning, Riley's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing with Jameson. Meet me tomorrow before the wedding, or I'll expose everything at the ceremony. The Fairmont lobby, 2 p.m. Come alone." Riley stared at the message, ice flooding her veins. Someone knew, and they were going to destroy everything. Riley stood in the Fairmont Olympic lobby at exactly 2 p.m., her midnight blue dress feeling like armor. The hotel was already buzzing with wedding preparations. White roses and crystal chandeliers created an atmosphere of old money elegance that made her coffee-stained world feel very far away. "You actually came." Riley turned to find a woman in a cream pantsuit watching her with cold calculation. She was beautiful in that polished, dangerous way. Dark hair and a perfect chignon, red lipstick, eyes that could cut glass. Natasha? Smart girl. Natasha smiled without warmth. "Let's take a walk." They moved to a quiet corner near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Natasha pulled out her phone, showing Riley a series of photos. Riley and Jameson at the coffee shop. At Nordstrom. At the hospital. "My private investigator is very thorough," Natasha said. "I've known about your little arrangement since the day Jameson hired you." Riley's mouth went dry. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something." Natasha leaned in close. "Jameson is incapable of real emotion. Do you know why he really hired you? Not to show me he's moved on. To prove to himself that he can fake emotions as well as I did when I was with him." "That's not true, isn't it?" Natasha's smile sharpened. "He told me he loved me for 3 years. Never missed a board meeting, never remembered my birthday, never once put me before his company. And then when I left him for someone who actually sees me, he has the audacity to play wounded." She straightened. "You're not a girlfriend, honey. You're a prop, a well-paid extra in his performance." Riley felt something crack inside her chest. "Why tell me this? Why not just expose us? Because watching you realize you're nothing to him will hurt him more than any public humiliation." Natasha's eyes glittered. "But if you want to avoid that pain, you can leave now. Walk away. I'll pay your sister's medical bills. All of them, ongoing care included. All you have to do is not show up tonight. You do that?" "I'm not a monster. I just want Jameson to face the truth. That he's empty inside, that no transaction can fix what's broken in him." Natasha checked her watch. "Ceremony starts at 6. Your choice, Riley. Show up and watch him use you, or leave and save yourself the heartbreak." She walked away, leaving Riley trembling in the golden afternoon light. Riley called Grace from a bathroom stall, her voice shaking. "What do I do? Do you love him?" Grace asked simply. "I barely know him." "That's not what I asked." Riley closed her eyes, seeing Jameson's face in the hospital, the way he had held her, the way he had looked at her in that dressing room. "I don't know. Maybe. I think I could." "Then go. If there's even a chance this is real, don't you owe it to yourself to find out?" Riley hung up and stared at her reflection. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, dress elegant. She looked like she belonged in this world. But did she? At 5:30 p.m., she made her decision. The ceremony was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, transformed into a garden paradise with thousands of white roses and twinkling lights. Riley slipped into the back row, her heart pounding. She spotted Jameson sitting near the front, his shoulders tense in his tailored tuxedo. The music swelled. Natasha appeared at the end of the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than Riley's car. And she was stunning, radiant. Dean stood at the altar, looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Riley watched Jameson watching them. His face was carefully blank, but his hands were clenched white-knuckled in his lap. The ceremony was beautiful and perfect, and every second felt like glass cutting into Riley's skin. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and Dean kissed Natasha with genuine passion, Riley saw Jameson's jaw clench. This was a mistake. Natasha had been right. She was just a prop. Riley stood to leave, but the movement caught Jameson's eye. He turned, and their gazes locked across the crowded ballroom. Something raw and desperate flashed across his face. He stood up in the middle of the recessional and walked straight toward her. "You came," he said, reaching her side. "I shouldn't have." "Riley, wait." He caught her hand. "I know what Natasha told you. My assistant saw you two talking. She called me. Then you know she's right. She's not." Jameson's voice was fierce. "She's wrong about everything, especially about you." The wedding party was moving toward the reception hall. People were starting to notice them. Riley could feel eyes turning their way. "Jameson, this was a mistake." "No." "The mistake was thinking I could fake this, that I could pretend what I feel for you isn't real." He cupped her face in his hands, right there in front of everyone. "I fell for you, Riley. Somewhere between the coffee and the hospital, and the way you look at me like I'm more than my bank account. This isn't fake anymore. It never was. You're paying me to be here. Then I'll tear up the contract. Grace's surgery is paid for regardless. Stay because you want to. Leave because you want to. But don't leave because you think this isn't real." Riley's eyes burned with tears. "How do I know you're not just saying what I want to hear?" "You don't." His thumb brushed her cheek. "That's what faith is. That's what love is. Taking the leap even when you're terrified." The word love hung between them like a promise and a threat. "Jameson." A voice cut through the moment like a knife. They turned to find Dean standing there, his face carefully neutral. "We need to talk, privately." "Not now, Dean. Now." Dean's voice hardened. "It's about the company, about what you've done." Jameson's expression shifted to confusion. "What are you talking about?" "The merger deal you've been negotiating with Chen Industries. The one that would have saved your company from bankruptcy." Dean smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Riley had ever seen. "I killed it this morning. Called in every favor, every connection. As of 1 hour ago, you're ruined." The color drained from Jameson's face. "You couldn't have. That deal was ironclad." "Nothing's ironclad when you have the right leverage." Dean glanced at Riley with disdain. "Did you really think hiring a fake girlfriend would make you look stable to investors? It made you look desperate. Pathetic. I made sure every board member knew about your little arrangement." Riley felt the world tilt. "How did you know?" "Natasha told me everything. She's been keeping tabs on Jameson since the day we got engaged." Dean's smile widened. "This whole thing was a test, Jameson, to see if you'd learned anything, if you'd grown at all, and you failed spectacularly." Jameson's hands dropped from Riley's face. His expression had gone carefully blank, the same mask he'd worn watching the ceremony. "Get out," he said quietly. "This is my wedding," Dean replied. "Get out." Jameson's voice cracked like thunder across the ballroom. Guests turned, conversations dying mid-sentence. "Both of you. You wanted to destroy me? Congratulations, you win. Now leave me the hell alone." Natasha appeared beside Dean, her face triumphant. "Jameson, don't be dramatic. Don't." His voice broke. "Don't you dare tell me how to feel. You used me, both of you. For 3 years you made me believe I was the broken one, the one who couldn't love right. But it was you. It was always you." He turned to Riley, and the pain in his eyes made her chest ache. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. They're right. I am pathetic. I am desperate. And you deserve so much better than this mess. Jameson, wait." But he was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd of stunned wedding guests. Riley stood frozen, her mind racing. Then she looked at Natasha and Dean, at their matching expressions of satisfaction, and something inside her snapped. "You know what?" Riley said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "You two deserve each other. Not because you're happy, but because you're both so empty inside that you need to destroy other people to feel anything." She grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing server and raised it high. "Let me tell you something about Jameson Blackwood. He showed up at my sister's surgery even though he didn't have to. He held my hand for 6 hours while I fell apart. He sees people, really sees them. And yeah, maybe he's not perfect at showing his feelings, but at least when he loves someone, it's real. Not this hollow, vindictive game you're playing." Riley drained the champagne and set the glass down hard. "I hope your marriage is everything you deserve." She walked out of the ballroom to applause from guests who were clearly enjoying the drama more than the wedding itself. Riley found Jameson on the hotel's rooftop terrace, standing at the railing and staring out at the Seattle skyline. The city lights reflected in his eyes like stars. That was quite a speech, he said without turning. Someone had to say it. I'm still ruined, Riley. My company's gone. Everything I built. She moved to stand beside him. Do you love what you built? He finally looked at her. No, I don't think I ever did. Then maybe being ruined is the best thing that could have happened to you. I can't pay you now. The bonus, the additional money. It's all tied up in assets that are about to be seized. I don't care. You should. I'm not a billionaire anymore. I'm just a guy who lost everything. Riley took his hand. You're a guy who bought 6 hours of terrible hospital coffee and didn't complain once. You're a guy who noticed when a stranger was hurting. You're a guy who's real in a world full of people playing pretend. I'm broke, Riley. I have nothing to offer you. Good. She smiled. Then I know you're not paying me to be here. He laughed, the sound broken and beautiful. You're insane. Probably. She squeezed his hand. But I'm here anyway. They stood together on that rooftop as Jameson's old world crumbled below them, and Riley wondered if this was what falling actually felt like. Not the terrifying drop, but the moment when you realize someone's falling with you. 3 weeks after the wedding, Riley's world was different in ways she couldn't have imagined. Jameson had moved into a modest apartment in Capitol Hill, liquidating his remaining assets to pay off debts. He spent his days consulting for startups, taking meetings in coffee shops instead of corner offices. And somehow, impossibly, he seemed happier. They saw each other every day. Sometimes at Grounded, where Jameson had quietly become a regular again. Sometimes at Riley's apartment, where he'd learned to cook surprisingly decent pasta. Sometimes just walking through the city, talking about everything and nothing. Grace's recovery was progressing beautifully. She could walk without pain now, taking physical therapy 3 times a week. Riley would catch her sister watching them sometimes, smiling like she knew a secret. You're good for him, Grace said one evening while Riley was making dinner. Jameson had gone to grab wine from the corner store. He's good for me too. It's weird, isn't it? How something that started so fake became so real. Riley thought about the way Jameson had kissed her for the first time 2 weeks ago. In her apartment with no one watching, no performance required. Just them and the truth they'd been dancing around. Yeah, she said softly. It's weird. The doorbell rang. Riley opened it expecting Jameson with wine, but instead found Patricia, his former assistant. She looked nervous, clutching a manila envelope. Patricia? What are you doing here? I need to talk to you. Before he gets back. Patricia glanced over her shoulder. Can I come in? Riley let her in, confused. Patricia had been let go when Jameson's company dissolved. They'd barely spoken since. What's this about? Patricia set the envelope on the coffee table. I didn't want to do this, but you deserve to know the truth. What truth? Open it. With trembling hands, Riley opened the envelope. Inside were documents, legal documents, and photographs. Her breath stopped as she read. Bank statements showing transfers from Jameson's accounts. Not to the hospital for Grace's surgery, but to an offshore account. And then transfers from that same offshore account to Chen Industries, the company that had supposedly rejected Jameson's merger. I don't understand. The merger never fell through, Patricia said quietly. Dean never killed it. Jameson did. Riley's head spun. That's impossible. I was there. I heard Dean say he'd ruined him. Dean thought he'd ruined him. But Jameson had already sabotaged his own company weeks before. He transferred all the viable assets to a shell corporation, then let his original company collapse. Made it look like Dean's doing. Patricia pointed to another document. That shell corporation just finalized the Chen merger yesterday. Jameson's about to be richer than he ever was. No. Riley's voice was barely a whisper. He wouldn't. There's more. Patricia pulled out photographs. Images of Jameson meeting with Dean weeks before the wedding. He and Dean planned the whole thing. The public humiliation, the dramatic collapse, everything. It was all theater. Riley felt sick. Why? Revenge. Jameson wanted to make Natasha and Dean think they'd won. Wanted them to reveal their true colors in front of everyone. He knew if Dean thought he'd destroyed him, he'd gloat. He'd show everyone at that wedding exactly what kind of person he was. And it worked. Half their investor friends dropped them after that scene. Their reputation in the tech world is destroyed. The door opened. Jameson walked in with wine and a smile that died when he saw Patricia. What are you doing here? Riley stood, the documents clutched in her shaking hands. Tell me this isn't true. His face went carefully blank, the same expression he'd worn at the wedding. Riley, tell me you didn't use me. Tell me this wasn't all part of your revenge plan. Silence. Heavy and suffocating. It started that way, Jameson said finally. Riley's heart shattered. Get out. Riley, please listen, get out. She threw the documents at him, papers scattering across the floor. You used my sister's surgery as bait. You used me as a prop in your sick game. Everything you said, everything you made me feel, it was all fake. It wasn't fake. Not after the first day. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? Tears streamed down Riley's face. You're a liar. A manipulator. You're exactly what Natasha said you were. Empty. Jameson flinched like she'd struck him. I know how this looks. You know how it looks? Riley's laugh was bitter. You destroyed your own company to make your ex-fiancée look bad. You paid me $50,000 to help you do it, and I fell for it. I fell for you. I actually believed you were different. I am different. Because of you. Don't. Riley's voice broke. Don't you dare put this on me. I'm not your redemption. I'm not your proof that you're capable of real emotion. I'm just another transaction. Patricia stood up, looking miserable. I'm sorry, Riley. I thought you deserved to know. After Patricia left, Riley and Jameson stood on opposite sides of the room. Grace had wheeled herself to her bedroom, giving them privacy neither of them wanted. There's something else, Jameson said quietly. Something Patricia doesn't know. I don't want to hear it. The offshore account. The money that's supposedly mine. He picked up the documents, pointing to the final page. Look at the beneficiary. Riley didn't want to look. Didn't want to give him any more chances to lie. But something in his voice made her glance down. The beneficiary name, Grace Chen. What is this? Grace's medical expenses are covered for life. Not just the surgery, but everything. Physical therapy, pain management, follow-up care, college tuition, all of it. Jameson's voice was steady, but his hands trembled. The Chen merger included a private settlement, a trust fund that can never be touched by anyone but Grace. Not me, not you, not creditors if anything happens to either of us. Why would you do that? Because on day 3 of knowing you, I realized I'd do anything to keep that worry out of your eyes. He stepped closer. Yes, I sabotaged my own company. Yes, I used the wedding as theater. I wanted Dean and Natasha to expose themselves, and they did. But you, Riley, you were never part of the plan. Then what was I? You were the variable I didn't account for. You were the moment I realized revenge doesn't fix what's broken. His voice cracked. I fell in love with you. Real love. The kind that makes you want to be better. The kind that makes you realize all the money in the world means nothing if you're alone. Riley wanted to believe him. Every cell in her body wanted to believe him. But trust, once broken, doesn't heal easily. How do I know this isn't another manipulation? Another layer of the game? You don't. Jameson pulled out his phone, showed her his banking app. But I can transfer every penny of that merger money to you right now. You can control it, distribute it, burn it for all I care. Because none of it matters without you. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Riley? What do I have to do to prove this is real? I don't know! Riley's voice echoed off the walls. I don't know if you can. You built our entire relationship on a lie. I built our relationship on coffee and hospital waiting rooms and learning that success means nothing if you're not living. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the tears in his eyes. I was dying inside, Riley, going through the motions of a life I never wanted. And then you handed me a cup of coffee and looked at me like I was human instead of a wallet. That wasn't part of the plan. That was real. But the rest of it wasn't. The rest of it was theater. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into my mess without telling you the whole truth. He reached for her hand but stopped, letting his arm fall. But what we have, what we built in the spaces between the lies, that was always real. Riley looked at him. At the man who had shown up at her sister's surgery, who had held her while she cried, who had taught himself to cook pasta just to make her smile. And she looked at the documents scattered on the floor, evidence of his deception. I need time, she said finally. I need to think. How much time? I don't know. Maybe forever. She walked to the door, opening it. Please leave. Jameson picked up the papers, moved toward the exit. At the threshold, he turned back. I love you, Riley. That's the one true thing I've said through all of this, and if it takes forever to prove it, I'll wait. He left. Riley closed the door and slid down against it, sobbing. Grace wheeled out of her bedroom, her face etched with concern. I heard everything, Grace said softly. What are you going to do? I don't know. He used us, Grace. He used your illness as leverage for his revenge plot. But he also made sure I'm taken care of for life. Grace moved closer. I'm not saying forgive him. What he did was wrong. But Riley, I've watched you these past few weeks. You've been happier than I've seen you in years. That wasn't fake, not on your end, and I don't think it was on his either. How can I trust him again? I don't know. But here's what I do know. He could have kept all that money. Could have let you walk away thinking he was broke and started fresh somewhere else. Instead, he told you the truth through Patricia because he knew you'd find out eventually. That's not the action of a manipulator. That's the action of someone who's terrified of losing you. Riley wiped her eyes. When did you get so wise? Around the time I stopped being able to walk. Pain teaches you a lot about what matters. Grace squeezed her sister's hand. Whatever you decide, I support you. But don't let fear make the choice for you. Let your heart decide. Riley spent that night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Jameson. The coffee shop, the hospital, the rooftop, looking for more lies, more manipulations, and finding, to her surprise, only truth in the spaces between. The next morning, Riley made her decision. She just hoped it was the right one. Riley found Jameson 3 days later at a place she didn't expect. Not his apartment or a coffee shop, but Pike Place Market, standing in front of Grounded. The shop was dark, the closed sign still hanging in the window despite it being 10 in the morning. The landlord gave me another week, Riley said, approaching from behind. But I don't think I'm going to reopen. Jameson turned, surprise flickering across his exhausted face. He looked like he hadn't slept since she'd kicked him out. Good, she hadn't either. Why not? Because I realized something. Riley pulled out her keys, unlocking the door. Come inside. They entered the empty shop. Dust motes danced in the morning light filtering through the windows. The espresso machine sat silent, the tables bare. It felt like a tomb for dreams. I've been running this place for 4 years, Riley said, trailing her fingers along the counter. Working myself to death to save something that was already dying. I told myself it was for the regulars, for the community, but really, I was just scared of letting go. Riley, what are you saying? I'm saying I understand now. Why you sabotaged your own company. She turned to face him. Sometimes the thing you're holding on to is the thing that's destroying you. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to be free. Jameson's eyes widened. You're not saying what I think you're saying. I'm closing Grounded. Permanently. Riley felt tears prick her eyes, but she smiled through them. Grace is going to college in the fall. Full ride, plus living expenses, thanks to you. She doesn't need me to sacrifice myself anymore, and I don't need to prove I'm enough by working 3 jobs and running on fumes. What will you do? I don't know. Maybe travel. Maybe go back to school. Maybe open a new coffee shop somewhere else. Somewhere I choose because I want it, not because I'm trapped by it. She moved closer to him. I've been thinking about what you said. About revenge and theater and the lies we tell ourselves. Riley, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know. And I'm angry. I'm so angry that you thought manipulating people was the answer. That you used my desperation as a tool. She took a shaky breath. But I'm also angry at myself. For falling so hard so fast. For ignoring red flags because I wanted the fairy tale. This isn't a fairy tale. No, it's messy and complicated and full of mistakes. Riley reached out, touching his face gently. But it's real. The anger is real. The hurt is real. And what I feel for you, underneath all of that, is real too. Hope flickered in Jameson's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't forgive you, not yet. Maybe not for a long time. Her thumb brushed his cheek. But I don't want to lose you either. So we're going to do something radical. What? We're going to start over, completely. Riley stepped back, extending her hand formally. Hi, I'm Riley Chen. I'm a recently unemployed barista with trust issues and a tendency to overwork myself. I have a sister I'd die for and a fear of letting people in. What's your name? Jameson stared at her extended hand, then at her face, reading the serious intent there. Slowly, a smile broke across his features, the first real smile she'd seen in days. He took her hand. Jameson Blackwood. I'm a former tech CEO who destroyed his own company for revenge and learned the hard way that success means nothing if you're empty inside. I have commitment issues and a history of choosing work over people, but I'm trying to be better. Nice to meet you, Jameson. Riley's voice was thick with emotion. Want to get coffee sometime? I'd like that. Though I should warn you, I have very high standards for coffee. Lucky for you, I know a place. Well, I used to. She looked around the shop one last time. Want to help me pack this up? Seems like a good place to start. Beginning and ending together. They spent the day boxing up Grounded. The equipment would be sold, the furniture donated. Riley packed away the mismatched mugs with care, each one holding a memory. Jameson told her stories about his company, about the long nights and lost relationships, about becoming someone he didn't recognize. The worst part, he said, carefully wrapping a French press, was realizing Natasha had been right. I wasn't capable of putting someone first. Not then. I'd spent so long building walls that I forgot what it felt like to let someone in. And now? Now the walls are gone. Burned down with everything else. He looked at her. I'm terrified, Riley, of messing this up again. Of hurting you worse. Good. Fear means you care. Riley taped up a box of coffee beans. I'm terrified too. Of trusting you. Of being the fool who got played twice. But Grace said something that stuck with me. She said pain teaches you what matters. And what matters to me is trying, even if we fail. As sunset painted the shop in gold and amber, they finished packing. Riley stood in the doorway one last time, saying goodbye to the dream she'd clung to for so long. Any regrets? Jameson asked beside her. About the shop? No, about us? She considered. Ask me in a year. They walked out together, Riley locking the door behind them. The keys felt light in her hand, lighter than they'd felt in years. So what now? Jameson asked as they walked through the market, past the flower stalls and street musicians. Now we take it slow. Coffee dates. Actual getting to know each other. No contracts, no performances, no grand gestures. Riley slipped her hand into his. Just two broken people trying to figure out if they can be less broken together. I can do slow. Can you? Because slow means no saying I love you for a while. No moving in together. No big romantic moments. She squeezed his hand. It means rebuilding trust brick by brick. Day by day. And some days I'm going to be angry about what you did. Some days I'm going to doubt everything. And I'll be there for those days. All of them. Jameson stopped walking, turning to face her. I know I don't deserve this chance. But I swear to you, Riley, I will spend every single day proving I'm worth it. Don't prove it to me. Prove it to yourself. She stood on her toes, pressing a gentle kiss to his cheek. Because the man I fell for wasn't the billionaire or the master manipulator. It was the guy who held my hand in a hospital and didn't ask for anything in return. Find that guy again. Be that guy. And we'll see where this goes. 6 months later, Riley opened an envelope delivered to her new apartment. Inside was a wedding invitation. Not Natasha and Dean's wedding. They'd already heard that marriage had imploded after 3 months. This invitation was simpler, more elegant. Patricia Chen and Marcus Williams request the honor of your presence. A note was attached in Patricia's handwriting. Thank you for giving me the courage to leave that toxic job and find my own happiness. You and Jameson showed me what real love looks like, even in its messiest form. Riley smiled, showing the invitation to Jameson. He'd been coming over for dinner twice a week, helping Grace with her college applications, learning to be present instead of perfect. They'd had fights, tear-filled conversations about trust, moments where Riley almost walked away. But they'd also had laughter, long walks where they learned each other's histories, quiet evenings where words weren't necessary. They were building something real, foundation first, no shortcuts. Should we go? Jameson asked. Together? As friends who are figuring things out. He smiled. No performances. Just us. Riley thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, desperate, exhausted, clinging to a dying dream. And she thought about the woman she was becoming, free, hopeful, learning that love doesn't always look like fairy tales. Yeah, she said finally. Let's go. But I'm driving. Deal. As they sat together on Riley's secondhand couch, Grace laughing at something on her laptop in the next room, the city lights twinkling through the window, Riley realized something profound. This wasn't the ending she'd imagined when she'd first walked into that coffee shop and met a sad-eyed billionaire. It was better, because it was real, messy and imperfect and still being written. No contracts, no guarantees, no promises of happily ever after. Just two people choosing each other, day after day, brick by brick, building something that might actually last. Jameson reached for her hand, and Riley let him take it. Not because she'd forgotten what he'd done, but because forgiveness wasn't a destination. It was a journey, and some journeys were worth taking, even when you didn't know where they'd end. Hey, Jameson said softly. Thank you. For what? For giving me a second chance. For teaching me that love isn't a transaction. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. For being the bravest person I know. Riley smiled, tears in her eyes. Ask me in a year if I still think this was a good idea. I will. And the year after that, and the year after that. Jameson? Yeah? I'm glad I made that coffee. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Two scarred souls learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to move forward despite the past. Together. And maybe, just maybe, that was its own kind of happy ending. The end.